When I first started writing, I had no idea what the hell I was doing. Absolutely none. I wished that I had had somebody that tore apart a book and said, this is how a book works. Here's all the pieces and here's how you put it back together. Sort of like deconstructing a recipe, except not every recipe is exactly the same because you have your own emotional take that you put on it and your own creativity. There is a way to tear the book apart, see how the structure works, and that makes your life a lot easier as a writer.
But
I'm going to give you the secrets for how that works. And I've got the handy dandy whiteboard out again. You guys really liked it in the other video. And yes, I did get an easel, so you do not have to worry about it falling down. The last video that I did this with, I had it propped up on some books in a chair and it just kept falling down. It was hilarious, actually. Today, we've got a version that's a lot more secure. I'm going to tear apart the first chapter of this book because when you understand how chapter 1 works, you can make chapter 2, chapter 3, chapter 65 all work in a very similar manner. We're going to talk a little bit about overall plot and then break down this chapter so that you can see how it all went together. Before we get started, I want to remind you of this little sticker that's in the corner here. This is from when I did a half Ironman 8 years ago. I keep it there to remind myself I can do hard things. You can do hard things. You can write a book. You just got to keep plugging away. Most of the half Ironman was about the training. It wasn't about the race itself. The training that you're doing right now by watching this video, the training that you're doing by writing in general, is all getting you ready for the big race, the big finish line with putting the book out there in the world. It's a good job on you. Let's talk about the overall plot. Last time I went through the GMC, which is the goal, motivation, and conflict. And if you missed the other video, yes, my handwriting is atrocious and I know it and I'm doing my best. That's basically what your character wants to accomplish from the beginning of the book to the end. And that's what forms this part of the plot structure. This is all the scenes. This is all the things getting worse and worse and worse. And then this is the black moment. And then the falling action, if you paid attention when you guys were talking about Shakespeare in high school, and then the resolution. You notice that the biggest part of the plot is this here, because that's what readers are turning the pages for. They're constantly worried, is it going to work out? Because things keep getting worse and worse and worse. The falling action is pretty quick and the resolution is pretty quick. Because once the character has what they need, what they want, what they've gone after, the reader stops caring, essentially, because they have gotten to the finish line with the character. So they don't really care about what happens afterwards. Maybe a short epilogue, but nothing more than that. A lot of books start with this structure where there is something right here that kicks off the whole book, and that's called the catalyst. Other writing instructors call it an inciting incident, which basically means the same thing. I like catalyst because to me, it sounds like a big bomb going off in the character's life, which is essentially what it is. That catalyst happens in media res, which means in the middle of your character's life. Your character is already going about their life. You know, they got a job, they got kids, they got to cook dinner, they got to pay the rent, all of those kinds of things. They have an existing life. And that catalyst comes along in the middle of their ordinary life. So everything with their ordinary life gets put to the side or becomes impacted by going after this goal, motivation, and conflict for the plot. Let's take an example of Star Wars. Luke Skywalker's planet is bombed, his aunt and uncle are killed, and all of a sudden he's off on this quest to become a Jedi, to get revenge and, change the world, change the destiny of the planet, all of that. This plot here takes him away from his planet that was bombed. It takes him away from the people that he cares about. It yanks him out of that. So he can't do anything about this until he has achieved this. It's the same thing with the book. Your character can't really do too much with their ordinary life until they've achieved whatever it is. In Nobody with Bob Odenkirk, and Taken with Liam Neeson, and a lot of other movies that are like that, the bad guys come along and create the catalyst by kidnapping Liam Neeson's daughter in Taken. Liam Neeson's in media res, his ordinary life that he already has, is all about trying to mend the fences with his ex-wife and his estranged daughter. So that's what he is in the middle of doing when all of a sudden she is kidnapped. And that catalyst is what sets him off on the goal of trying to find her because she is in danger, but he's got these bad guys, she's in another country, he doesn't have a whole lot to go on. That's the goal, motivation, and conflict. What we're going to talk about today is this part, the ordinary world. That was terrible writing. Let me rewrite that. Not a whole lot better. It's the best I can do. Whether you put the ordinary world in or not is entirely based on the pacing of the book that you're writing, whether you really feel like it has a bearing on the rest of the plot and is important to the rest of the plot. That's your barometer. Does it impact the plot? Yes or no? If it doesn't, you don't need it, because otherwise you're wasting the reader's time. And don't worry, I'm going to show you exactly how that works. In Lisa Unger's Close Your Eyes and Count to 10, there's a prologue, which basically sets up the suspense plot. She is the main character, and she is literally living her life. She has a couple of kids. One of them just got in trouble at school, and it starts in the middle of her dealing with that. She's sitting in the principal's office with her son, and he's clearly been in a fight. We know we're not really in the suspense plot yet, and it seems like this scene has nothing to do with everything else, but it actually does, and that's the masterful part of writing a great book. In this first scene that's like 4 pages long, Adele's goal is to find out what happened to her son. She's a mom. That's what moms do. At the same time, there's a hint of a plot that happened before this book. The principal says to her, things haven't been easy. I know that. First Miller, he said, clearing his throat, then COVID. All the kids are struggling to find their footing right now, but Blake has been through that much more. Miller is her ex-husband. He has disappeared, but we don't know that yet. Adele only thinks about her ex-husband because it was triggered by what happened in the plot. The principal mentioned it. That triggers the thought. We don't randomly sit around thinking about stuff unless it's triggered in our memory. She has this tiny little backstory moment, like she needed to be reminded of how much her kids had suffered because of the things their father had done, was still doing in some sense. And that's basically it. We don't know what her husband did. We don't know how it figures into everything. And it does eventually figure into the entire plot, which is part of what makes Lisa Unger such a brilliant writer. They get through the principal meeting, and like I said, it's a really short scene, like 4 pages, and they leave. And then Lisa starts layering in that suspense a little bit. She glanced around at the trees that surrounded their house, the next place a few miles up the road. A chill moved down her spine, the strange sense that she often had of being watched. Paranoid, that's what Violet, her daughter, would say. She wished she could chalk it up to that. So that tells us that Adele knows something else is going on. We've set up suspense, even though the catalyst has not quite happened yet, because Lisa's adding another short scene before that actually happens. The reason she does that is that Adele needs a really strong motivation to leave her children. She can't just up and decide, I'm going to go do this game show thing. The second scene in the first chapter is about the FBI agent who handled her husband's case coming to the house and saying, we spotted what we think is your ex-husband in Tampa, Florida, and we just want you to be aware that he's out there. It's, again, just 3-4 pages, very short. Lisa doesn't give us a whole lot of clues here about what that backstory is, because Adele and Agent Coben both know what happened, what Miller did, why Miller is on the run. So they don't need to think about it, and they don't need to talk about it. This is not a soap opera. We don't need to recap on a Monday morning. Essentially, the reader is left a little in the dark, and that's good, because when you're a little in the dark, you're like, I got to find out what happened. Why is her husband on the run? What happened? Why are they looking for him? All of that keeps the reader turning the pages. This moment with the FBI agent has raised the stakes for Adele already. Not only does she have a son in trouble, but she also has a lot of bills to shoulder on her own. And with her son being in trouble, she's also going to have like some kind of therapy or something for her son to pay for. And this is kind of putting her over the edge. It's driving her motivation, her reason for what she does. The catalyst comes in the next scene. Her son comes to her and he says, Maverick Dillon has a game show coming up. There's $1 million prize if you win. There are things in the shadows that Adele has noticed in this first chapter that are driving her to say, I need more money. I need to keep my kids safe. How am I going to do that? This moment is what drives her to take the challenge when the catalyst comes. Catalyst is her son saying, there's $1 million prize if you want to go on this We Watch show and beat everybody out in this kind of spooky hide and seek game. Before she could think twice, she tapped on the bright red link. Boom. She has basically detonated a little teeny tiny bomb in her life. As soon as she hits that button, her new goal, which becomes the goal for this entire plot, is to win. And why? Right up there. She needs the money. She wants the freedom and power. And she needs to help her kids. Which, terrible writing. Again, I know. It's a good thing I'm talking and you have closed captioning to go with. Her conflict. She has many, many conflicts in this. So the ordinary world is kind of put on hold, literally, because she flies to another country in order to go after this new goal, motivation, and conflict. But do you see this? This goal here ties into this goal here. If she can win this contest, she gets enough money to take care of her kids in this ordinary world, and she can be the mom that she needs to be. So let's play What If. What if Lisa just started with the catalyst? Here is the game. You can win $1 million if you go and play and win. That could work. It absolutely could work.
But
if Lisa had just started with the catalyst, we would not have been as invested in Adele's journey because we wouldn't have known about her kids. We wouldn't have known about the money problems. We wouldn't have known about her need for the power and the freedom. We wouldn't have known about all those things that happen in her ordinary world. So we would not be as invested in the outcome. She is not just a character on the page after the money. She has a whole lot more going on here. So doing this scene this way creates more of a motivation for the character and gives the reader more of a motivation to stay invested with this character. Now, I promised you that the secret to all your other chapters would be discovered in this one. Secret. The construction of this chapter here with the goal, motivation, and conflict for the chapter is what goes into every single chapter in your plot going forward. When Adele lands on the island, in that chapter, her goal is to figure out a strategy. This goal, motivation, and conflict pattern is repeated in every chapter and in every scene. And the key to a book that holds together, that doesn't fall apart in the middle, is making sure that all of those goal, motivation, conflicts that are in these little scenes and chapters feed into the big one. It all has to go together. It all has to feed into what happens with the catalyst and what goes with this big, very messy now plot. I'm really trying to show you guys how it's kind of like a knitted project. It's all sort of brought together. Somebody else did not like my analogy of a house, but I really do like the analogy of a house, because without all of those things that go into building a house, the whole structure falls down. I'm going to talk about that on a scene by scene basis in a future video, but you need all of these parts and they all have to work together. There really is no wasted anything when you build a house. You don't want to waste materials because it's expensive. And that's exactly how a plot works. All of the little GMCs that go into the other scenes fit into the bigger one. They're all part of the same puzzle, essentially. If you like this, let me know, and you want me to tear apart more scenes, I will absolutely show you that. It's basically just puzzle piece, puzzle piece, puzzle piece, puzzle piece. And they're all constructed in this same mini GMC manner, and they all fit together into the bigger one. If you're struggling with this, or if you really want to understand it, take the book that you're reading right now, look at the scene or the chapter that you're on, and ask yourself, what is the character's goal here? What's their motivation? What's their conflict? How is that tying into the big plot? How does it all go together? How is it holding up the framework of the story that they've got? Once you can see that, you can begin to apply it to your own book. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe and share this with other writers, because sharing is caring. It is not easy. If it was easy, everybody would do it and be a bazillionaire. Don't forget though, you can do hard things. And I will see you on the other side of the page.